What is up, guys? It is AJ. So Alex Pereira versus Jan Blachowicz goes down this Saturday at UFC 291 in the co-main event. A very exciting matchup with high stakes on the line, being that there is currently no champion at light heavyweight. The winner here puts themselves in a tremendous position to fight for the vacant title probably towards the end of this year. Now, on the side of Alex Pereira, he is the former middleweight champion and he's 1-1 against Israel Adesanya. Jan Blachowicz, former light heavyweight champion, and just recently fought for the vacant title against Magomed Ankalaev, in which that fight ended up being a draw and no champion was crowned. So the winner here has a ton to gain with that UFC belt being vacant, and I believe this is a real #1 contender fight. We'll talk more about what is next for the winner towards the end of the video. What I'm going to do here is preview the matchup between these two. I'll give you guys my prediction for the fight, as well as talk a little bit about the betting odds for it too. So make sure you guys smash that like button, and if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And let's first talk about Alex Pereira's last 3 fights, because those really are his marquee UFC matchups. Well, his #1 contender fight versus Sean Strickland ended very quickly. He landed his signature left hook and put Strickland to bed with relative ease. It was not a competitive fight. It is cool to see that these guys have now sparred together, and Strickland having the gusto to go in with a guy who flatlined him brutally when they fought in the cage. Mad respect to Strickland, but Pereira looked like a monster in that fight, and it really added to that boogeyman status the way he easily dropped a skilled guy like Sean Strickland. And then he was given his title fight against his kickboxing rival Israel Adesanya, who he had already won 2 fights against in professional kickboxing. They got inside of the cage. Israel Adesanya was doing well throughout the earlier parts of the fight, but Pereira was constantly stalking him. And Pereira has no break on him either. And he was able to stop Israel Adesanya very late in that fight. 5th round knockout win, and he pulled off what was a bit of an upset, but also just, a shock for Israel Adesanya. This man has hunted me down from kickboxing to now MMA and beaten me at my game. They rematched immediately inside of the UFC, which I thought was a necessity, and Israel Adesanya was able to flatline Alex Pereira that time. But here's what I was thinking about that matchup. Up until the stoppage, Pereira seemed to be better. He was beating up Israel Adesanya's legs and stalking him, ripping big combinations. At the time that Adesanya landed the knockout punch, it looked like Alex Pereira had Israel Adesanya hurt and kind of threw caution to the wind, just looking to unload and let go of his massive combinations and get Izzy out of there. Unfortunately for Pereira, he ended up on the wrong side of a brutal knockout. I'm not saying that it's 100% the weight cut, but Pereira is a very large man and somehow was able to get to 185, and I would assume that has to do something to your punch resistance. Now moving up to 205, I like this way more for Pereira. On the opposite side, Jan Blachowicz will look at his past 4, because I want to bring up something. He has a win over Israel Adesanya as well, and he showed some wrinkles with the wrestling in that matchup there, holding Adesanya down a bit, controlling him, throwing the striking rhythm off, and winning it on the judges' scorecards in his light heavyweight title defense. Immediately following that fight, Jan Blachowicz, who did he fight? Glover Teixeira, who is Alex Pereira's coach / mentor. And Glover was able to hurt Jan on the feet and win that fight by a rear naked choke. That is the man who's training Pereira for this fight. I actually like that a lot. I think that Glover being in the corner aids to the game planning of Pereira, knowing that he's not only faced this foe, but defeated him as well. And then after that fight, Jan bounced back with a bit of a, less than impressive win. Alexander Rakic got a leg injury when they were fighting, and it ends up going towards Jan getting a victory. But ultimately, it was an inconclusive fight. It was an injury stoppage. And then after that, Jan, though looking very dangerous earlier in the fight and really kicking up Magomed Ankalaev on the ground, he was getting beaten up late, and that fight ends up being a draw. So a true win that isn't injury stoppage. It's been 2 years and 3 months for Jan Blachowicz, and it was against Israel Adesanya, who Alex Pereira's most recent win is also against. I like this matchup a lot stylistically, because many will say that Jan Blachowicz is going to get Pereira to the ground, and Alex Pereira has zero ground skills. I will assure you something about Pereira. He is putting in the time to improve his grappling, and I think he's putting in a shit ton of time on it. And you see who he's working with. Glover Teixeira as his head coach. This is a light heavyweight with a very skilled Brazilian jiu-jitsu game that I really think is going to aid to the success of Alex Pereira's evolution here. Now, we already know what Alex Pereira has, and that is scary knockout power. He's got a terrifying left hook that will give fighters nightmares, and I would say just striking overall, he's one of the most dangerous guys on the planet. Moving up to 205 pounds, what I expect is more knockout power, better punch resistance, and better grappling defense. The strength, without having to suck out all the weight getting down to 185, is going to aid to his game. So regardless of him not being known for the grappling skills, expect improvements there, not only in the technique, but in the physicality for Alex Pereira as well, filling out into, a less of a weight cut, but even just a naturally larger frame now, because you think about this. His camps, when he's cutting down to 185, he has to be so food and diet centric that everything is about losing that body weight and coming down. Whereas at 205, it's a much less significant cut for him. And I'll say this, I think that Alex Pereira is still a rather large light heavyweight. So the fact that he was able to get down to 185 is pretty insane. And it's not like he's shown gas tank issues. I mean, he was in the later stages of the Adesanya fight the first time. So that, to me, is a big thumbs up for Alex Pereira. That's something that I like. Now, on the opposite side, Jan Blachowicz is a very skilled kickboxer in his own right. He's extremely dangerous, and I will emphasize the kicks on him because he has some of the most terrifying body kicks. He destroyed Dominic Reyes, ripping him apart with body kicks, and he was doing damage to Magomed Ankalaev with the kicks to the legs and body too in their fight most recently, and that to me is a massive accolade because Ankalaev at that point was looking like the true boogeyman of 205, and Jan made him look pretty much human. Now, he has a very capable ground game. Jan Blachowicz does have submission wins. How many does he have? He has 9 subs out of his 29 professional wins, and he also then has 9 knockouts. So if you look method of victory-wise, knockout or submission, it's actually 50-50 for Jan, even though he's more so known for his stand-up game. And I can assure you guys here, he is expecting to put that wrestling singlet on or maybe that jiu-jitsu gi. He's going to be getting this fight to the ground. I expect him to be able to put Alex Pereira on the ground at least a couple of times using takedown/trips, specifically more so against the cage work. But note this, I don't think it's so much about can Pereira stop every takedown. It's going to be dependent upon can he get back up to his feet. I believe his strength is going to be off the charts, and Jan Blachowicz, regardless of him having 9 submission wins, I am not calling him a top control specialist. He is not a guy with a traditionalist wrestling heavy top game where he's dominating with ground and pound. Sure, he has a well-rounded MMA game and he has decent MMA grappling, but I don't think it's enough so that I see him taking Pereira down, passing from full guard to half guard to side control or mount or crucifix and TKOing him. If Alex Pereira is to find himself on, serious danger on the mat, it's going to be Pereira potentially getting his back taken by a Jan Blachowicz, which is something that surely is possible, but I will assure you, Alex Pereira is drilling the hell out of not letting a Jan take his back and just easily manhandle him. And I don't think he's going to, because I don't see Jan with the strength to hold an Alex Pereira down and bully him. Sure, he might get a couple takedowns. He might land a couple strikes. It's not going to be significant control time. Pereira will bounce back up. And then also what happens when Pereira is defending the takedowns and Jan is stuck in a striking exchange with Alex Pereira, it takes one shot for Pereira to knock out Jan Blachowicz. I do not believe that Jan has the punching power to knock a Pereira out, and I'll tell you this as well. The kicking skill set that Jan Blachowicz has in this matchup here could actually get him caught by Alex Pereira. If he's ripping kicks, getting comfortable, chopping them apart, Pereira explodes inside with a massive hook. I'm telling you, Jan's chin will not hold up to a Pereira punch. So we're looking at Jan, who's 40 years old and 5 months. We'll give the full treatment. He's like 40 and a half. We got Pereira, who's 36 years of age, so youth advantage for Alex Pereira by 4 years. Also, overall, less MMA wear and tear, but regardless, Pereira had a shitload of kickboxing experience prior to his MMA run. When I bring up the point about Jan's last very legit win, yes, he has an injury win over Alexander Rakic, but his last legit win is nearly 2.5 years ago against Israel Adesanya, where he wasn't overly impressive there. So is the game plan going to be Blachowicz hold, control, win, a grind-heavy decision? I don't believe he's going to be able to succeed with that. I think Pereira is going to be hunting him down constantly. I do think the grappling attack of Jan could be effective early in the first round. They're also at high altitude. I do feel as though Alex Pereira, without a weight cut, is going to have a better gas tank than before, and I think that this is just one of those freak mental monsters who just has zero break, being Alex Pereira. Jan has been put out before. He's taken losses before inside of the UFC. And I honestly feel like Alex Pereira is the scariest striking matchup for Jan Blachowicz. Thiago Santos badly knocked out Jan, and he was a primarily known for striking type of fighter, but people are really siding with Jan, are going to talk about Alex Pereira has zero ground skills. I promise you, he has better ground defense than any of you are anticipating, and he's going to prove that on Saturday, and on the feet, he's going to look very dangerous. So what is my official prediction? Pereira will hunt Jan Blachowicz down, and Alex Pereira will knock him out conscious. I believe it's going to be a left hook. I believe Jan is a bit open to the left hook, man, especially if he's forced backwards. And I think Pereira is going to land the bomb, knock out Jan Blachowicz, and silence all the doubters, and it's probably high stakes title shot coming for Pereira next. And I think that right now he's one of the scariest strikers in the world, but specifically one of the scariest light heavyweights and most marketable light heavyweights on the roster. So I'm damn excited. So Pereira to win the fight by a knockout. Now, the betting lines for this matchup are interesting because Alex Pereira is being slept on. He is a plus 100 underdog here against Jan Blachowicz, the minus 120 favorite. So I like Pereira to win. He is a slight dog if you are betting. Make sure to bet responsibly. It's very high-level MMA here, and obviously anything could happen, but I'm telling you, Alex Pereira is going to knock him out. That's what I see here. Pereira by KO is plus 170. I do think that is a pretty nice tag for the knockout. And then Pereira to win by KO in round number 1 sits at plus 425. Pereira by KO round 2, plus 650. If you are going to prop it up, I think bet the knockout prop for Alex Pereira. And, you could obviously go money line 2 at plus 100 just to stay on the safer side and not have to predict the actual method of victory between these two. But I like Alex Pereira to win. I like Alex Pereira by knockout, and I love the fact that he is an underdog. Now, I do want to preview what is next. I want to speculate, rather, what is next for Alex Pereira with a win. So, as I spoke upon very early in the video, vacant belt. Jamal Hill, ruptured Achilles, cannot fight. Relinquishes the belt. A lot of respect for Jamal Hill doing that. Jiri Prochazka, who relinquished the belt previously due to injury, and then, the matchup between Jamal Hill and Prochazka was supposed to take place at some point this year. That's off the table. Pereira getting a win here, especially if he's not sustaining significant damage, I believe is going to be able to make a turnaround before 2024, and we can run Jiri Prochazka versus Alex Pereira for the vacant UFC light heavyweight title in one of the most violent fights in the history of combat sport. Can you imagine these two savages going after it? Prochazka is a straight murderer who looks to fight with damage, pressure, and chaos. And you know what's interesting too? The fact that Alex Pereira's mentor also went to war with Jiri Prochazka. So that kind of aids into the game planning for him as well. And he can look to avenge his boy, Glover Teixeira. I think that's a scary matchup for Jiri Prochazka because of the striking skill set that Pereira brings. He's more slick and technical than a Jiri Prochazka. And I know many will say, but Pereira's he's terrifying with his power. Yeah, but even though at times people will bring upon his technical mistakes, like leaving his hands out when he gets caught and yada yada, he's more crisp with the punch than a Jiri Prochazka. And I'll anticipate Alex Pereira will be an underdog in that fight and maybe one worth betting on. And I think if we're really lucky, we get it on the UFC 295 card, and you make that a super card. Jones-Stipe for the belt at heavyweight in the main event. Light heavyweight title fight, Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka. That card will sell a shit ton of pay-per-view buys. They use John Jones and Stipe super fight in the main, but also you really get fans excited about light heavyweight with two of the most violent guys in the world throwing down, being Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka. Now, in an alternate universe, if Jan Blachowicz was able to win, I'm also down to see him in that spot. And I do think him versus Jiri would be a pretty incredible fight too. I really am interested to see how this matchup is going to look on Saturday. I think it's going to go, as I'm saying, with a Pereira knockout. And I think that we're going to see the truth with Alex Pereira is that he should have probably always been at 205, and he drained himself down terribly to get to 185. Him coming up, Pereira at 205, is going to look more menacing than ever, physically stronger, more powerful, higher durability, and better gas tank. And that is going to be a necessity too, because we are at high altitude for this card, in Utah. They're a little bit high up compared to, if you're fighting in Florida. I think Pereira's gas tank is going to be prepared for it, and I think he's knocking Jan Blachowicz out, and he's going to be fighting Jiri Prochazka in one of the most violent fights of all time. And I'll say this, it's going to be at UFC 295, and they're going to turn that card into a super card, and I cannot wait for it. It's going to be a jam-packed freaking weekend for me, because I believe 295, if I'm not mistaken, it takes place, is it on my birthday? UFC 295. The day before my birthday is UFC 295, November 11th. So I'll be excited as hell for it. Hey, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys have been liking the more in-depth preview / predictions for the major fights on this UFC 291 fight card. Make sure you guys smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Definitely let me know in the comments what you think. Do you agree with me that Alex Pereira is going to win the fight, or are you on the Jan Blachowicz side? And also, what's next for the winner? Is it Prochazka title shot? I think it is. I think this is the clear-cut #1 contender fight with a shit ton on the line. Definitely let me know your thoughts in the comments on the video. Drop a W in those comments to show your support and boost the algorithm for your boy if you have nothing to say. I appreciate everybody tuning in. If you really enjoy the content, turn those post notifications on. Don't keep them on personalized. Put them to all so you do not miss a video, because I'm dropping plenty of content every single day of the week. Much love, my people. I appreciate you all, and I will see everyone in the next one. Peace, guys.